I was sitting at a red light this morning, just sort of watching the world go by, and I saw a scene that I think is, well, it's becoming the defining image of our decade, honestly.
Oh, yeah. What was it?
It was this guy in a very expensive brand new SUV, windows down, and he is absolutely red-faced,
Yeah.
just screaming.
Screaming at traffic.
No, screaming at a teenager in a fast food drive-through window.
Yeah.
And I mean veins popping, spit flying, total meltdown mode.
Ah, the man-child in his natural habitat.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
the look on his face, it wasn't just anger, it was panic. It was this look of someone whose entire reality had just crumbled to dust because he got the wrong dipping sauce.
Yeah, the classic catastrophic reaction to a minor inconvenience.
Right. And it really got me thinking about the archetypes we see dominating the culture right now. We have the Karen melting down because a coupon expired. We
Yeah.
have the Peter Pan archetype, the guy living in the basement at 35, totally refusing to engage with the economy or adult responsibilities.
It's everywhere.
It feels like it. It feels like we are surrounded by adults who are technically grown-ups. Like they pay taxes, they complain about lower back pain. But emotionally,
Emotionally, they seem trapped in a nursery.
yes, trapped. So the question we need to answer in this deep dive is simple but really uncomfortable. Is this actually happening? Is society collectively regressing? Or are we just seeing it more because everyone has a camera in their pocket and uploads it to social media?
It is the ultimate question right now. And to answer it for you, we can't just rely on anecdotes or, generational griping about kids these days. We've pulled together a massive stack of research for this deep dive. We are bridging neurology, developmental psychology, specifically looking at the foundational work of Jean Piaget and John Bowlby, and crossing that with modern data on digital media and algorithmic conditioning.
And the picture that emerges from all these sources is honestly fascinating.
It really is. The data strongly suggests that growing up isn't a passive process. You don't just naturally age into maturity because time passes. It is a very specific, very difficult, and easily interrupted mechanical process in the brain.
So wait, it's not inevitable. You can physically age without neurologically maturing.
Precisely. You can be 50 years old, have a gray beard, a massive mortgage, a 401k, and literally be running on the operating system of a toddler.
That is terrifying.
It is. And what we're going to explore today is the very real possibility that our modern environment, our parenting styles, our education systems, and specifically our algorithms, is systematically hacking that maturation process. It is preventing us from updating our mental software.
That is a very heavy claim to make. But I think before we get to the algorithms and the modern crisis, we really need to understand what this software is actually supposed to look like. Like, if we aren't maturing, where exactly are we stuck?
Right. To understand where we are stuck, we have to go all the way back to the source code of human development.
Yeah.
We need to look at Paris, France in the 1920s, specifically the Alfred Binet Institute.
The Binet Institute, this is where the IQ test came from.
Exactly. They were absolutely obsessed with measuring human aptitude, categorizing intelligence. And into this institute walks a young Swiss researcher named Jean Piaget.
Okay.
He's brilliant, he's hungry to make his mark, and he gets assigned to work with children, administering these standardized tests. And almost immediately, Piaget notices something that the senior researchers were completely missing.
Which was what?
Well, at the time, the prevailing scientific consensus was that children were essentially just defective adults.
Defective. That's a harsh way to put it.
That was genuinely the view. They thought children were just stupider versions of us. They failed vocabulary tests. They failed basic spatial reasoning tasks. The researchers looked at the raw data and basically said, well, these tiny humans are just dumb. They don't know enough yet.
So they viewed childhood as just a lack of data.
Right, an empty vessel waiting to be filled with adult facts. But Piaget didn't look at the correct answers. He looked at the errors the kids were making. And he realized they weren't random mistakes. The errors were incredibly consistent across different children of the same age.
They were following a pattern.
Yes, they were following a strict, predictable set of rules. Piaget realized kids aren't stupid adults. They are running a completely different operating system with its own perfectly sound internal logic.
So it wasn't a lack of intelligence at all. It was a fundamental structural difference in how they processed reality itself.
Exactly. He identified the very first stage of human cognitive development. We'll call it the child operating system. And it is defined by three massive, non-negotiable pillars. If you understand these three pillars, you will instantly understand that guy you saw screaming in the drive-thru.
Okay, lay them on me. What's the first pillar?
The first pillar is total egocentrism.
which in common parlance just means selfishness.
No, and that's a crucial distinction. It's much deeper than selfishness. Selfishness implies that you know other people have needs and feelings, and you are actively choosing to ignore them in favor of your own.
Okay, I see.
For the child operating system, there is no other people. Not really. There is literally no concept of a world existing outside of their own immediate sensory experience. The classic textbook example of this is the game of hide and seek with a toddler.
Right, the toddler who stands in the dead center of the living room and just covers their eyes with their hands.
Exactly. And they genuinely, entirely believe that you cannot see them. Why? Because they cannot see you. In the child's operating system, perception is reality. If I don't experience it, it fundamentally does not exist.
Wow.
This is a lack of what Piaget called object permanence, or formal operational thinking. They can't simulate a perspective outside their own skull.
That makes a lot of sense.
But this leads directly to the second pillar, which is honestly even more dangerous when you see it in an adult. Pillar number 2 is emotions are facts.
Emotions are facts. You know, that sounds an awful lot like a huge percentage of political discourse on the internet right now.
It really does. But it is the default baseline state of the infant mind. In this stage, there is absolutely no separation between I feel this and this is the objective, undeniable state of the external world.
So the feeling dictates the reality.
Exactly. If a child feels angry, the world is objectively wrong. It's not a nuanced, I am frustrated because my expectation was violated. It is simply, you are bad because I am mad. If the child feels fear, the situation is inherently dangerous regardless of the actual threat level. Subjective feeling and objective reality are completely glued together.
So if you try to reason with a toddler who's having a full-blown tantrum, you're failing right out of the gate because you're trying to appeal to objective reality, and they are living entirely inside a subjective reality.
You're speaking a completely different language. You are throwing logic at a system that only processes feeling. And this combines with the third pillar, no future planning.
Meaning they can't think ahead.
Not at all. A child in this stage cannot understand cause and effect or second-order consequences. The neurological processing power simply isn't there yet. It is purely a cycle of impulse leading directly to demand.
I want ice cream.
Right. I want ice cream, therefore give me ice cream right now. They don't pause and think, well, if I eat ice cream now, it will ruin my appetite, I won't be hungry for dinner, and mom will be upset with me. That entire thought process requires simulating a hypothetical future state, which their brain physically cannot do.
Okay, so let's summarize this. We have a creature that fundamentally believes it is the absolute center of the universe, believes its internal feelings are objective external truths, and has absolutely zero ability to forecast the future or understand consequences. That is a highly volatile combination.
It is extremely volatile, and here is the crucial part of our deep dive today. This is the part that explains our modern crisis of maturity. How do you get out of that state? How does a child ever realize, oh wait, I'm actually not God?
I always just assumed it's a mix of natural brain development and just sort of bumping into life, like you just grow out of it.
It's not passive. It requires a very specific mechanism. For the software to update, the child must be thwarted.
Thwarted. That's a very specific, almost dramatic word to use.
It's really the only word that accurately fits the severity of what has to happen. The child has to crash forcefully against the immovable boundaries of the real world. They have to scream for the ice cream, and the universe, or in most cases, the parent representing the universe, has to say no.
And that no is the software update.
It's the trigger for the update. Think about the neurology of what's happening in that exact moment. The child screams. They have a built-in prediction model running. I scream, the giant adults give me what I want. If the parent gives them the ice cream, that prediction is validated.
The egocentrism gets reinforced.
Exactly. The brain says, correct, my model is accurate, I do control reality. But if the parent says no and actually holds that boundary despite the screaming, the child hits a wall, the prediction fails. I am screaming, I am demanding with all my power, and yet the physical world is not changing to accommodate me. This induces a massive cognitive crisis.
So the brain actually has to reconcile the failure of its own power.
Right.
It has to deal with the error code.
Right. It forces a fundamental realization. There are forces and entities outside of me that I cannot control. That exact moment is the literal birth of maturity. It is the realization of the other.
This makes so much sense. Because if you never let a kid hit that wall, if you are the kind of parent who is constantly soothing them, immediately distracting them with an iPad the second they whine, giving them the cookie just to shut them up in the grocery store,
Yeah.
You are actively preventing that cognitive crisis from happening.
You are. You are starving the developing brain of the vital friction it needs to rewire itself. You are keeping them trapped in the delusion that their emotions dictate reality. And this is exactly why we see grown adults who completely fall apart when they encounter an opinion they don't like online, or when their coffee order is wrong. They were never adequately thwarted. They never internalized the lesson that the world doesn't have to agree with them.
So let's say the process actually works. You get thwarted, you realize other people exist and have their own agendas, you successfully graduate from the child OS, but you don't go straight to being a wise, enlightened elder, do you? What is the very next stage?
You enter phase 2. We call this the adolescent operating system. And if the child phase is defined by egocentrism, the adolescent phase is entirely defined by transaction.
Transaction. Okay, so this is the teenage years.
Yeah.
The unbearable awkwardness, the intense cliques, all of that.
Exactly. And that awkwardness is actually a beautiful sign of cognitive growth. It means you've just realized that other people have their own internal thoughts and judgments. Suddenly, you become acutely aware that you are being watched and evaluated.
The spotlight effect.
Right. So the brain shifts its core strategy from I am the world to how do I survive in this dangerous world of other evaluating people? And the solution it comes up with is the transaction.
Life becomes a deal. Everything is a negotiation.
A constant series of bargains. If I take out the trash, mom gives me the car keys. If I wear these specific brand name sneakers, the cool kids will let me sit at their table. If I act tough and aloof, people won't mess with me. The adolescent OS views literally all human interaction as an exchange of goods and services. I input behavior X, I get reward Y.
It's purely calculated. It's almost sociopathic in a mild way.
It is highly calculated, and the primary currency in this economy is validation. Approval, affection, social status, these are no longer just nice things to have. They are commodities to be earned, bought, or manipulated out of others.
Which explains so much of high school.
Exactly. This is where we see classic high school behavior, which at its core is essentially fake personalities and highly conditional kindness. You aren't being nice to the outcast kid because you are a deeply virtuous person. You're being nice because a teacher is watching and you want a good grade or you want an invite to the right party later. It's all leverage.
Now, this is where I think a lot of listeners might start to squirm a little bit in their seats. Because what you were describing right now, this deeply transactional behavior, this obsession with optics and leverage, that doesn't magically stop at age 18 for most people. Honestly, that sounds exactly like the entire corporate world.
You hit the nail right on the head. This is the great trap of modern adulthood. You can be a 50-year-old CEO of a Fortune 500 company. You can be a United States senator. You can be an A-list movie star. And you can still be operating entirely on the adolescent software. We call this phenomenon the success trap.
Walk me through the success trap. How does someone become a CEO while stuck in a teenage mindset?
Imagine someone who is just naturally very, very good at transactions. They are born charismatic. They're highly intelligent. They know exactly how to read a room and figure out what people want to hear. They learn very early on in life. If I say the specific charming thing, I get the girl. If I put in these extra hours and flatter the boss, I get the promotion.
They master the game.
They completely master it. They keep winning the game over and over. And because the transactions are so highly profitable for them, they never actually feel the deep emptiness of the mechanism itself. They spend their entire lives performing, constantly bargaining for validation, accumulating massive social and financial wins. But fundamentally, at their core, they're still just a teenager asking, what do I get out of this interaction?
They never actually grow up. They just get much, much better at playing the adolescent game.
Correct. They are high-functioning adolescents. And society rewards them massively for it, which reinforces the stunted growth. Now, on the flip side of the success trap, you have the failure trap.
The people who aren't good at the game.
Right. These are the people who try to be cool and fail miserably. They try to manipulate the system and they get caught. But here's the tragedy. Instead of realizing that the transactional game itself is fundamentally flawed and moving past it, they just get incredibly bitter that the game isn't working for them.
Oh, this is the classic nice guy syndrome, isn't it?
It is the absolute definition of the nice guy syndrome. I bought you dinner. I listened to your problems. I put in all the correct tokens. Why won't you sleep with me?
I put the coins in the vending machine. Why didn't the relationship fall out?
Exactly. That is the perfect analogy. Whether you are winning the game like the CEO or losing the game like the bitter nice guy. If you view relationships and human beings as a vending machine, you are severely stunted. You are stuck in phase 2.
Okay, so if the child OS says, I command the world, and the adolescent OS says, I barter with the world, what does the adult OS say? How do we actually graduate from this transactional nightmare?
We graduate when the transaction fails us completely. Or, more accurately, we graduate when we finally realize that the most important, profound things in human life absolutely cannot be bargained for.
Give me an example of that shift. What does that realization look like?
Think about love. You can definitely manipulate someone into dating you. You can wear the right clothes, memorize the right lines, project the right image, but you cannot, under any circumstances, manipulate someone into genuinely loving you. Love, by its very nature, is non-transactional.
That's powerful.
You can bargain for a fancy job title, but you cannot bargain for a genuine sense of inner purpose. The adult operating system only kicks in when you make the fundamental shift from asking, what can I get out of this, to asking, what can I give to this, and what is objectively true for me, regardless of the outcome.
This brings in the concept from the research notes about unconditional values.
Yes. True adulthood is defined by the capacity to act on principle rather than acting for a reward. It's choosing to be honest, even if it actively costs you money or status. It's choosing to deeply love your partner, even on the days when they are being incredibly annoying and are offering you absolutely nothing in return at that specific moment.
It's stepping off the scoreboard entirely.
Exactly. It is the willingness to be disliked for who you genuinely are, rather than being loved for a character you are playing.
That's a really tough one for a lot of people. The willingness to be disliked. That requires completely surrendering the need for that external validation that we just spent our entire adolescence desperately chasing.
It's terrifying. It requires accepting the fundamental uncontrollability of the world. Think of the progression. The child screams for control. The adolescent schemes for control. The adult finally accepts that they cannot control the outcome or other people. They can only ever control their own character and their own responses. That massive shift from seeking external validation to cultivating internal virtue is the biological and psychological finish line of maturity.
But looking around, just driving down the street, looking at the news, it feels like very few people actually cross that finish line. Or at the very least, we're seeing a massive societal delay in people crossing it. Why is that? If this is the natural, healthy path of human development, what is actively breaking the process?
To understand what's breaking the process, we have to look at the environment we are raised in. We have to look at attachment theory, and specifically the groundbreaking work of a psychologist named John Bowlby.
Bowlby is a legend in developmental psychology.
He is, and Bowlby's core insight was that all healthy human development is a delicate tension between two opposing forces: the secure base and exploration.
Safety versus risk.
Right. To learn and grow, a child absolutely needs to explore the scary, unknown world. But to survive that exploration without being traumatized, they need a safe base, usually the parents or caregivers, to return to. The mechanism is a loop. You run out into the yard, you get scared by a loud dog, you run back to the base, you get a hug and reassurance, your nervous system recharges, and then you have the courage to run out again.
And that loop is what actually builds the neural pathways for confidence and resilience.
Exactly. It's a muscle being worked. But parents usually fail to maintain this balance, and they tend to fail in one of two extreme directions.
That's failure mode number one.
Failure mode number one is too much exploration, no base. This is the chaotic household, the deadbeat or absent parent, the environment of severe neglect. The child runs out into the world, gets hurt or scared, turns around to run back for safety, and nobody is there.
Oh, man. And the lesson the developing brain learns from that is?
The brain learns, I am entirely alone, the world is dangerous, and relying on people is a fatal mistake. These children develop what we call avoidant insecurity. They learn that needing others equals pain, so they become hyper-independent. Fast forward, and as adults, they're the ones who flat out refuse to commit to relationships, who keep everyone at arm's length, who constantly say, I don't need anyone, I'm fine on my own.
They're stuck because they lack the foundational safety required to be vulnerable and non-transactional.
Exactly. Now, what's failure mode number two? And I'm guessing you can guess this one, because it is far more prevalent in our current culture.
Too much base, no exploration. This has to be the helicopter parent, the snowplow parent.
Yes. The parent who is so deeply terrified of their child experiencing even a moment of pain, failure, or discomfort that they systematically remove every single obstacle from the child's path.
They never actually let the kid run out into the yard in the first place.
Or if they do let them run out, the parent is running 2 steps ahead of them, frantically clearing away the rocks and sweeping the path. This child develops anxious insecurity. The lesson their brain learns is that the world is terrifyingly complex, and they are fundamentally incompetent to handle it on their own.
So they become dependent.
Highly dependent. They rely entirely on others for validation, for safety, for emotional regulation. They perceive any minor disagreement, any friction, any challenge to their worldview, not just as an annoyance, but as a literal life-threatening withdrawal of safety.
Which explains the fragility we see so much of today. So neither of these kids actually grows up. One becomes a walled-off lone wolf, and the other becomes a terrified, fragile dependent.
Both are severely stunted. But it's not just parenting styles that stunt us. We also have to talk about the physical role of trauma and biology. When a human being experiences severe trauma, especially at a young developmental age, the brain floods with cortisol.
Cortisol being the primary stress hormone.
Right. And you can think of cortisol as a biological freeze button for software updates. When you are in acute survival mode, your brain isn't interested in learning complex social dynamics or practicing empathy or engaging in philosophical growth. It is solely interested in not dying today. A stressed brain physically rewires itself much slower.
So trauma literally slows down maturity.
It creates a devastating downward spiral. You experience trauma, your brain freezes its adaptation process. Because you aren't adapting, the world feels increasingly confusing and scary, which generates even more cortisol, which makes you adapt even less. You get locked in a trauma loop.
Which perfectly explains why you might meet a 40-year-old who acts exactly, predictably like a 15-year-old. If the major trauma happened to them at age 15, their emotional development might have effectively stopped right there.
Exactly. They are frozen in time. And then we have one more massive layer to this problem: education. And when I say education, I don't mean whether they are teaching algebra or calculus. I mean the hidden curriculum of schooling.
A hidden curriculum, what exactly is that?
It's the implicit lesson that a rigorous school environment teaches you simply by existing. A good school, ideally, teaches you that the universe is completely indifferent to your internal feelings. Think about it. Physics does not care if you are having a sad day. Gravity still works exactly the same. Math has a single, objective right answer, regardless of how strongly you feel about the wrong answer.
It aggressively forces that separation between I feel this and this is objective reality. It breaks the child OS.
Yes. It forces you to confront the other. And deep reading, and I mean the difficult practice of sitting down with a complex, dense book for hours at a time, that forces you to actively simulate another human being's perspective. It physically forces that formal operational reasoning Piaget talked about.
But if we remove that friction...
Right. If we make school too soft, if we systematically remove the possibility of academic failure to protect self-esteem, if we stop requiring deep, sustained reading and replace it with bite-sized media, we are literally removing the gym equipment that the developing brain uses to build the muscle of maturity.
It sounds like we're messing with a very, very delicate balance here. In the research notes, you referred to this as the Goldilocks zone.
Human growth only happens in the Goldilocks zone of challenge. It's a basic biological principle. If there's too much challenge, severe trauma, abuse, complete overwhelm, you get crushed and stunted. If there's too little challenge, helicopter parenting, frictionless environments, zero accountability, your mental muscles atrophy, and you also get stunted. You need the challenge to be just right.
Hard enough to force you to adapt and update your software, but manageable enough that you can actually overcome it and build confidence.
Exactly. And this brings us squarely to the present day. Because if you look at the architecture of modern life, it feels like it is explicitly designed to obliterate that Goldilocks zone.
We are currently running a massive, unprecedented social experiment. We have systematically removed the natural friction of the real world and replaced it with a digital simulation that caters entirely to our worst, most immature instincts. Let's talk about the phone, because I have a very strong feeling that this little glass rectangle in my pocket is playing a huge role in this man-child epidemic we started with.
It is the primary engine of societal regression today. It's not just a distraction. It is an active dematuration device. Think about the core algorithm of any major social media platform. What is its single overriding purpose? To keep you engaged on the screen. And how does it achieve that?
By showing you exactly what you want to see. It's a mirror.
It is the ultimate validation machine. If you click on funny cat videos, it feeds you an endless stream of cats. If you click on outrage-inducing partisan political rage bait, it feeds you a diet of pure rage bait. The algorithm perfectly mimics the child's operating system. I am the center of the universe, and reality bends to accommodate my every desire.
Wow, when you put it like that.
When you are scrolling TikTok or Instagram or Twitter, you are never, ever thwarted. You are never allowed to be bored. You are rarely genuinely challenged by opposing, well-reasoned views, and if you are, you just swipe them away in a millisecond. You banish them from your reality with a flick of your finger.
So the technology is quite literally training our brains, hour by hour, to remain firmly entrenched in the egocentric phase. It's reversing the thwarted mechanism.
It is structurally reinforcing the neural pathways of childhood egocentrism every single second you use it. But it gets even worse, because it doesn't just cater to the child, it also ruthlessly exploits the adolescent. It gamifies all human interaction. It turns every thought, every photo, every relationship into a metric of likes, views, and shares.
Which is the adolescent phase perfectly crystallized. It's the transactional trap on absolute steroids.
It is the most efficient adolescent machine ever invented. I will post this highly edited selfie specifically to extract validation. I will share this aggressive political opinion not to persuade anyone, but to signal to my in-group tribe that I am cool and loyal. It traps us in an infinite, inescapable loop of transaction. We are constantly performing for an invisible audience, constantly seeking approval. We are never, ever allowed to just sit in the quiet, non-transactional, unobserved space of true adulthood.
So we have built a ubiquitous technology that keeps us egocentric and demanding like a toddler, while simultaneously keeping us insecure, performative, and transactional like a teenager. It's literally a global manufacturing plant for stunted adults.
And it creates what sociologists call a visibility bias that deeply distorts our perception of baseline reality. Think about what actually goes viral on these platforms. Does a video of a responsible, patient father sitting at the kitchen table helping his kid with algebra go viral?
No, that's boring. Nobody clicks on that.
Does a video of a local business owner quietly staying late to balance the books and save her employees' jobs go viral? No. What goes viral is the total breakdown. The Karen throwing hot soup at a cashier. The man-child punching a hole in the drywall because his team lost. The absolute worst, most regressive behavior is what gets amplified to millions of people.
So we see the worst behavior constantly, all day long, and we subconsciously think, well, everyone is crazy. The bar is just this low now.
Exactly. We are massively overexposed to childish rage and severely underexposed to adult virtue. Because true virtue is quiet. Virtue doesn't need a ring light and an audience. Remember our definition from earlier. True adulthood is doing the intrinsically right thing without the expectation of a reward or attention.
That's a profound point. If the algorithmic economy strictly rewards attention, it inherently punishes adulthood.
Yes. The entire digital economy is structurally hostile to the quiet, unglamorous, difficult work of growing up. It incentivizes and monetizes the tantrum.
Okay, we have diagnosed the problem, and it is bleak. We've traced the arc from Piaget's observations in Paris to the inescapable algorithmic traps in our pockets. But we cannot just end this deep dive on society is doomed and we're all toddlers. If I'm listening to this right now, and you, the listener, I'm talking directly to you, and you are realizing, oh no, I think I'm being deeply transactional in my life, or I think I am actively organizing my life to avoid being thwarted, what do you do? How do we actually fix this in ourselves?
The very first step is conducting a brutal, honest audit of your own life. You have to sit down and ask yourself the hard, uncomfortable questions. Where are you currently being transactional?
You mean looking closely at your personal relationships?
Yes, especially your closest relationships. Are you secretly keeping score in your marriage? Are you thinking, well, I did the dishes and put the kids to bed, so my spouse mathematically owes me physical affection or praise? That is adolescent logic. You have to stop it. Do the dishes because you personally value a clean home and because you love your partner. Remove the conditional if-then logic from your love life.
Okay, that covers the transactional side.
Yeah.
What about the thwarting? How do you fix a lack of friction?
This is honestly the most important action you can take. You have to actively seek out friction. Think about it. We spend so much of our money, our time, and our energy trying to make our lives as comfortable, seamless, and frictionless as humanly possible. Food delivery, algorithmic feeds, echo chambers. You need to consciously do the exact opposite. You need to routinely put yourself in situations where you are not the expert, where you are absolutely not in control, and where you might actually fail.
You have to let the tree fall in the forest and accept that you didn't hear it. You have to let go of the center.
You have to accept that you are not the center of the universe. You have to accept that you cannot control external outcomes. And you have to deeply realize that maturity is not a finish line that you cross once. You don't just become an adult at age 25 and stay there forever automatically. It is a constant daily practice. It is a deliberate daily rewiring of the brain through voluntary challenge.
Honestly, listening to you describe it, it sounds like rebellion.
That is exactly what it is. In our current cultural moment, growing up is a radical act.
How so? Emphasize that for me.
Because the entire constructed world around you, the consumer economy, the tech platforms, the modern media landscape, is explicitly designed to keep you childish. It desperately wants you to remain impulsive so that you will blindly buy things. It wants you to remain transactional and insecure so that you will compulsively engage with content to soothe your anxiety. It is constantly selling you the incredibly easy path of instant gratification and unearned validation.
So, consciously choosing to be patient, choosing to take deep responsibility, choosing to act in a non-transactional way that is literally fighting the system.
It is. Growing up in the modern age is an act of profound resistance. It requires waking up every day and consciously choosing the difficult, unrewarded path in a world that is meticulously designed to sell you the easy one.
Growing up is an act of rebellion. I think that is the exact thought we need to leave people with today.
It's the only rebellion that actually matters in the end. Because if you don't do it, you're just a highly profitable pawn in someone else's game.
Well, this has been an absolutely massive deep dive today. We've covered an incredible amount of ground. I genuinely hope this helps you look at that screaming guy in traffic a little differently. Not with anger, but maybe with a little bit of pity for a mental software update that just never happened.
And maybe it helps you look in the mirror a little differently, too. Go find some friction today.
I couldn't agree more. And here is one final thought for you to mull over as you go about your week. If the algorithms and the digital economy are keeping us pacified and childish, what if true maturity becomes the ultimate luxury of the future? What if the ability to experience real-world friction, to fail safely, and to develop a non-transactional mind becomes a class divide, where only some can afford the offline friction required to actually grow up? Think about that. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you on the next deep dive.